Don't forget to subscribe to Basement Tales. Just go on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. We release a podcast every Thursday. That way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jackman, Charlie Einsman, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancey. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it.
All right, so we're ready to go. Okay, everybody out there, we're proud to be joined by a good friend of ours, Martin Saenz. And Martin Saenz is an expert in the NPN space. NPN stands for non-performing notes. And so we've known Martin, how long have we known you? About at least 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
7 to 10 years. And so Martin has been in the non-performing note space for a very long time. And we're pleased to have Martin with us on our podcast. Martin has a bachelor's degree from University of Texas at San Antonio. He's got an MBA from Drexel University. Martin has also written, how many books have you written, Martin? 3 or 4 books?
5.
He's written 5 books, primarily in the distressed note space and how to generate income from the distressed notes. Martin is also a managing partner of Bequest Funds. And what that is that's basically an income fund. And so they pay out a return annually to accredited investors. So Martin, I want to welcome you onto the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Wow. Thank you for that introduction, Charlie. You have a job if you ever want to come to Sarasota and ditch Sam.
I might need to do that.
Yeah.
So why don't we start this off by Martin? Tell everybody what you do in the non-performing note space. I think they're interested in hearing that first.
Sure. So we essentially buy pools of distressed mortgages in the secondary market. So I think what might be helpful is just to give a brief description of what the secondary market is. And so it's best just to start with, you have a borrower that wants to buy a home. So they go to a bank, which is also an originator, and they fill out the mortgage application, and they receive a promissory note, which is a promise to pay back the money, as well as a mortgage or deed of trust, which ties that promise to the property. So what happens over a given course of time is some of the borrowers that borrowed money start to default. And banks, for a number of reasons, they will sometimes hold that paper in-house, and then sometimes they'll bundle it off into tranches and sell it into the secondary market space. So the secondary market space is essentially like a flea market, whereby there are buyers and sellers of various mortgages and asset classes all throughout the secondary space. So that's where we operate. We operate in the secondary space, whereby we purchase from banks and other hedge funds distressed mortgage loans, whereby the borrower has not made a payment in, say, 4 or 5 years. Then
this is a non-performing note space. That's it, right? You don't do any performing notes. You just buy NPNs.
So we actually buy performing mortgages as it relates to our income fund, Bequest Funds. So Bequest Funds is primarily a place where we purchase and park our performing mortgages.
Oh, okay. So you do buy performing notes as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, however, we're our bread and butter, our roots are from the distressed debt space. So buying these mortgage loans, and we have a team of in-house asset managers talk to the borrowers, that do outreach with them and work out payment plans to help them remain in their homes. And so that's really the mission of our company on the non-performing side, is just to, be that lender that is able to work with the borrower, given where they are in life financially and what have you. And because we purchased it at a discount, we're able to allow for some concessions to help them get back on their feet. And as a result, we create long-term streams of cash flow for that side of the business.
So, Martin, how are you different? I probably know the answer. How are you different from Fannie Mae, and do you buy loans from like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac that are non-performing?
So we actually aren't a buyer directly from Fannie Mae on the distress side. There are they sell off tranches in the billions, and there's some large players that will purchase from them. So we might catch some activity downstream after it reaches, hedge fund A, hedge fund B. We might be third in line to receive, a portion of that pool that gets sold off.
Okay.
And now you're doing this nationwide, right?
Absolutely. Yes. We've been doing it. I've been doing this primarily for past 8 years, going on 9. And we buy nationwide. We've purchased about $20 million in non-performing loans in the past 12 months. So we are pretty active on that side of the fence. And we're also very active on the performing mortgage side as well, as it relates to bequest funds.
That's really good, because I know where you started and now where you are now. I mean, that's a lot to be said for that. But I think one of the reasons why you are where you're at now is because you have these things called systems in place, don't you? When you go looking for the due diligence, aren't you looking for certain things? And I know you don't want to disclose everything, but don't you have a bunch of systems in place to give you a lead up on people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, everything starts from the sourcing side, right? Like wherever you go and whatever business you're in, the question is always how to generate deal flow. And so from a sourcing perspective, we have evolved our identity. We have, closed on every transaction that we have engaged in. And so over the course of time, we've built a reputation whereby deal flow comes to us. And it hasn't hurt that, I have books that are out there that are on Amazon. I get invited to speak at various conferences, pre-COVID. So that all kind of helps from an identity perspective. Now, in terms of vetting these loans, obviously the borrower has not made a payment in a number of years. So what's to say they're able to make a payment now? Well, we want to see a few things. We want to understand property valuation.
Yep.
So we're going to triangulate data to understand, what's the property worth right now. We want to understand from a title report / O&E perspective, where's ownership lie? What's our ranking in the lien holder position. We want to understand any encumbrances, back taxes, things like that. They could hinder our position or take away from our equity coverage. We want to understand credit report. So to us, it's important that we buy loans whereby we have a good sense that the borrower has the ability to make payments to us. So when you're
But how do you know? But how do you know if the borrower has the ability to make payments to you? Are you actually looking at an actual mortgage application as part of the due diligence process?
So we're not. Oftentimes,
Okay.
because these are scratch and dent loans, you're receiving partial collateral. So you're not going to get loan origination
Right.
docs, especially not in the due diligence phase. You might get it when you get physical collateral files sent to you, on the tail end after post-purchase. But during the due diligence phase, you're essentially doing skip tracing. So you're doing background checks. If let's say that the person's in prison for first degree murder, then they're probably not going to do a loan modification with you. But if you find on skip tracing that they have a certification and they have, good, healthy profession, good, healthy employment, then there's a chance that they're going to pay you. There's no one data pool that's going to give you the silver bullet in terms of the borrower and their ability to pay. However, you're triangulating a bunch of data points to derive at that situation. Credit report, we're looking at, are they paying all their bills but me? Well, that's a real positive.
That's always good.
Because then that means that they need to carve me into the equation. Are they paying if we're buying a junior lien, are they paying their senior mortgage? Well, if they are, then they're probably going to want to stay in their home and there's emotional equity. If they're not, then they're probably not paying their taxes. If they're not paying their taxes, they're probably not paying their insurance. If they're not paying insurance, probably not mowing the lawn. So there's all these kind of like, criteria that we look at when we're evaluating the loans.
It sounds like you probably have some type of modeling software or something that has some.
This would be a perfect artificial intelligence project for
It sounds like it. I'm about to ask, Martin, if I can, use them for my next project.
Well,
I have a machine learning class I'm taking right now, Martin. I need some.
She's getting her PhD, Martin.
What's that?
She's getting her PhD.
Oh, terrific.
In artificial intelligence.
And artificial intelligence. Right now. It could change in another semester. Who knows? But I mean, it sounds like
I can barely work a remote, so I'm as low tech as you get.
I cannot work a remote either, Martin. The two don't go hand in hand. I don't do anything hardware. So what do you like your success rates? I mean, what makes you think that, just because, someone has not been paying their mortgage for years, what do you think? What are you thinking is going to?
And related to that, why don't they just pay the people that they were non-performing with? Right? Like what changes?
Yeah, good question, Ed.
So it's really comes down to the culture that we promote here and the systems in place for our asset management team. So we do a lot from an accountability perspective. All the asset managers, including myself as the owner, my partner Sean, and everyone in the firm, we all have metrics and goals by which we hold ourselves accountable. We hold team meetings at 8:05 every morning. Everyone reviews where they're at month to date. We celebrate successes. We have a celebration bell, a resolution bell in the office that's rung every time that someone hits a metric, and that goes for everyone on the team. So we have a real high energy, high pace environment. And however, at the end of the day, it's really about how we treat the borrower as in a humane way, and we treat them as a customer. So we view them as the individual that's going to put money in our pocket. So just like you would, you go to Best Buy and they hopefully treat you well because you're potentially putting money in their pocket to keep their doors open. Well, that's how we look at it. We look at the borrower not as someone like, they owe a bunch of money, we need to pound on them. No, we treat them very well. We look to build relationships with them because and couple that with we understand what they can afford financially. So we create plans that they can afford. So treating them with compassion, cultivating that relationship and giving them a plan they can afford and being accessible to them, because their asset manager just remains with them. All that equates to long-term relationships and being first in mind when they're making their monthly payments.
Oh, that's great. Now, can you take a step back and go through the equity position piece that you like to see? And
I think you called that O&E. Is that what you were referring to?
No, he called the title O&E.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. What's O&E? What's the equity pieces, Charlie?
Yeah. Can you step through? Let's say, for example, you're buying a second trust. Take us through the equity position that you like to see.
And let me just emphasize, explain it to me like I'm an idiot, because in fact, I may be very close to an idiot. Because I got to understand this.
Okay, so I'll what's probably better is because on the end non-performing loan side, it's a little bit more complicated because we're looking at we're building pricing matrices for different levels of equity coverage plus performance of the senior, non-performance of the senior. So it's a little bit more involved. And however, from a bequest perspective, where we purchase into our income fund, we only purchase performing loans. I'm going to talk to you about investment to value, because that's what we're looking for. So
Yeah, makes sense.
If you take a property that's worth 100,000 and we are purchasing a performing mortgage. Let's say that performing mortgage is the balance on that performing mortgage is 90,000. So we're buying a first lien mortgage with the unpaid principal balance at 90,000. Property's worth 100,000. So because that performing mortgage had a scratch and dent at some period of time, so in other words, the borrower defaulted and got back on their feet with a payment plan, let's say 4 years prior, and that borrower has been making their payments and the loan is seasoned now. So the borrower's in good standing. We're still able to purchase that performing mortgage at a discount. So we're not going to go to market and purchase that loan at 90,000, even though the unpaid principal balance is at 90,000. We are going to look to purchase that loan at no more than 65% of the value of the property. So if the value of the property is 100,000, we want to pay no more than 65,000 for that $90,000 loan.
I love you, man.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but do you look at the $90,000 that's owed on it? You're saying you're just looking at the value of the property. What if there was 70,000 that was owed on it? Not 70, but you know.
Doesn't matter. 65 grand is this cap.
So 65 grand is all you're going to pay for it.
Yes, Sandra. So to that point, we look at the coupon rate because we buy based on yield. So the coupon rate is very important. And so we obviously want the coupon rates to be higher, and then it's more of a quality of assets. We're going to offer less if the coupon rate's less, and this is like kind of a whole educational piece that you can go into on people that modify loans, right? Some people do some really, really funky stuff out there when they're creating payment plans with borrowers, and it really hurts them on the back end when they go resell these loans. But if you have a loan, let's take a different example. The property's worth 100,000 and the loan is 50,000. Mm-hmm. However, the coupon rate on the loan is 13%. Mm-hmm. So we buy,
I'm in.
Oh yeah. We buy in yields of 12 to 14%. That's our range when we buy good quality reperforming loan paper. And so we could pay par for that loan. We could pay 50,000 because we're already receiving back our yield of 13%. Yeah. And we're still under the investment to value ratio that we need to hit.
Do these loans ever get better and the person can refi out of your program and get a better rate? I mean, 13 is.
We love it. We love it all day long.
Okay.
No, you love it. You love it in the case where you bought that $50,000 loan at a discount. Mm-hmm. Now, if you bought that 50,000 loan at 13% of $50,000 loan, you don't want them to refi, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But they love the part where the person kind of cures the loan and they can go and become,
as long as he buys at a discount, he likes that part.
He likes a good customer experience.
So Martin, so I'm assuming in your bequest fund, you have two pieces of paper in there. You have a performing note that you buy. And you also have a non-performing note that you made into a performing note, and then that gets put in there as well, correct?
So what we do when we started the fund out, my partner and I, we put $1 million in. So we wanted to put the skin in the game, and we purchased some loans from our reperforming loan entity into the fund to get it kickstarted. However, a majority of the loans in bequest funds are from the secondary market. They're bought off the street. So what our intention is to hold our reperforming loans in our other entity in reserve. So if we over raise, then we can purchase from our other entity. As long as it meets the criteria, the underwriting criteria that we have for bequest funds. But we can pull it in. And the PPM calls all that out as well, that we can do that.
Yeah,
however, we want to buy from the secondary market.
All right. And I'm assuming that your PPM is a total debt offering, correct?
It's an equity offering.
Oh,
However,
it
it
is?
pays out like a debt offering.
Oh,
What is the
So,
PPM?
private placement memorandum. So it's the agreement. It's essentially the agreement that we have between Bequest funds and the investors that come in. So it outlines all the terms, but most importantly, we are offering a Class B equity offering to the investors. Now my partner and I, we're Class A shareholders because we have voting rights. So because we operate the fund, so we need to make decisions to operate the fund. Class B doesn't have any voting rights, but they have an equity stake. And why that's significant to the investors is in the case of the in the case of the worst case scenario, we have to liquidate assets in the fund and close it out. All the investors are going to be first in line because there's no leverage to the fund. They're going to be first in line to receive liquidation closeout money.
Oh, okay. But they're getting paid out a straight yield. In other words, they're not getting, let's say your fund performs at these much higher rates that you're talking about. They only get paid out a certain return, right?
Yeah, they're getting paid a straight 8%.
Yeah. Okay. That's like us.
Or
That's exactly how
compounded
we
at
run it.
8.29.
Yeah. We run, Sandra, Sandra, you don't even know it, but you signed our PPM as part of our hard money fund.
Yes, I am aware of that. I have that document somewhere over
She
here.
didn't know the name of it.
I didn't know the name of it. I know that I signed it. Yeah.
And
So-
this is something as a lawyer I can for the listener, this PPM is like a simplified way. Instead of doing a stock offering where you have to go through the SEC and do all these complicated things to issue a stock, which you can do, the PPM is a simplified thing that the quote unquote a high net worth investor can sign on to because presumably they have the knowledge and the money to take the risk without the protection of a normal, stock fund. And the benefit, of course, to our guests and others like them is they can move pretty quick to set these things up and not have all these regulatory issues. So it's definitely the way to go for people setting up a fund. And people who want to buy into these funds, they just really need to read that PPM and make sure they understand it and make sure that they have the money to risk. But if you have all of that 8% return is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a good return. And it's a C fund, right, Martin? A C fund?
Yeah, it's 506C, it's Reg D. And so it's set up for accredited investors like Edward mentioned. It is registered with the SEC. It's an initial registration.
Right.
And anytime you make major modifications, it gets re-registered. And then we register in the states when we take on new investors in those states.
Right. Just depends on where the investor lives. That's the state you got to register with, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And so how many different funds do you have? Is it just the one fund or do you have other funds too?
We have one. This is the only fund we have.
Okay.
And on the other side, on the NPL, non-performing loan side, that is primarily self-funded / we have one guy with a blank check.
Yeah, great. That works out really nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So
He leaves us alone.
Yeah.
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 Do you ever
That's
have
the
to
best
foreclose,
part.
Martin? Do you ever do you ever have to foreclose?
Yeah. So we have a very low foreclosure rate.
Oh, wow.
I mean, literally 1% of the time we take back the properties. It is well below the industry, where the industry's at. And I attribute that to my partner, who's very technical. He's a mathematician, and he's very analytical when he runs due diligence on these loans. And we kick out loans that we really don't feel confident we can work out, either a loan modification, reinstatement, payoff from the bar, or something like that. And we have a very high success rate of working with the borrowers. I'll just give you an example. Like industry standard could be, if you're buying senior liens, you're probably taking back the property 30-40% of the time easy. If you're buying junior liens, you're probably taking back the property maybe 10% of the time. So 1% is very low. So we're seeing an astronomical amount of payoffs because of all the
Low interest rates.
Yeah, interest rates and the equity spikes.
Yeah, but then are you having issues with reallocating that money? In other words, aren't you having a tough time finding things to buy right now?
I like to say we are.
Yeah.
However, we've hit on a deal just about every other month. So every month to 2 months, we're closing on a trade. So
that's
we've
good.
been very active, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes we'll see more on the NPL side, sometimes more on the RPL side, reperforming loans, non-performing loans. During COVID was an anomaly because a lot of our competitors backed away from trades.
Yeah.
And a lot of sellers were a little bit more eager to close on trades with the moratoriums and the unknown. And so we cleaned up last year, and because we went all in. I mean, we said we're not going to slow down, and that's good because we built up momentum with certain sellers that are going to carry over into to 2021.
No, see, that's bullish. I mean, that's exactly the same thing that happened to us in our area on the hard money side, on the private lending side. Once March hit, everybody got scared, and so there was only like 2 of us in the DC metro area that even did asset-based lending, and so we got everybody else's clients.
We got great borrowers.
Yeah,
Nice.
so excuse my French. I mean, we got the shit kicked out of us for a few months, but it was definitely a banner year because of people exiting the market. Now, of course, they're coming back into the market with a little bit lower interest rates, but that's okay. We had a great year too, just because of COVID.
You get a lot of loyalty from people when you're there when no one else is.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Good for you guys. I mean, just good for you to have the courage, right? That's what it came down to.
Well, I think it's a little bit of courage, but also the other folks had models that were dependent on other sources of funds outside their control. So if they were going to leverage their loans through a Wall Street sale later on down the pipeline, there was no availability for them there was no exit for their loans, and there was their wholesale lines and stuff were just shuttered. So they weren't working with equity that they can control. So it really had an adverse effect on them.
And then it's probably overheated like it is on my side with you guys now. Like all those buyers that didn't buy, they're pent up and they're probably trying to let loose to deploy capital.
Yeah, but don't you see?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, but don't you see a lot of these buyers overpaying for an asset class because they're sitting on too much cash?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been trending that way. I think on my side of the fence with the NPL side, we're seeing a few different influences in the space, and one is that increase in regulation, and so compliance is required state by state along with the federal government. And so you need more dollars and more labor hours committed to compliance.
And how about licensing? Are they making you get licensed if you're dealing with a consumer lending loan that's reperforming? This seems like some state some state regulators might like to see a license for lending.
Yeah, absolutely. That falls under the compliance umbrella.
So you have partners with licenses that work.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting is that it's actually creating barriers to entry. So a lot of the pops are getting squeezed as a result of regulation. We have a full-time person on compliance. I mean, that's how significant it is. I mean, we get licensed. It's state by state. You have debt collectors license, lenders license, servicing license. I mean, so it's an ongoing effort, and it's moving. It's always moving. So it's very significant. But this year is going to squeeze out a lot of mom and pops in our industry, and so sellers are vetting the buyers more than just, do you have proof of funds? Right before it was like, are you breathing and can you fund? It's like, yes. Okay, well, sold. And now it's like, no, like, tell me about your internal operations.
Because they have a look back.
What's that?
Is that because they have a look back that if you pick up a loan from someone who sells it to you and shouldn't have sold it to you because of a licensing constraint, they're on the hook for it still?
Well, more than that. I mean, if you're incompetent and you get sued, then the litigious attorney's just going to sue down the line,
I got you.
up the chain.
How do you handle attorneys and attorney fees and all that stuff? I'm sure you just pass it on to the borrower, right?
Yeah, you gotta work. Yeah, you gotta work it into your forecast, and you have to. We have a whole approval process for attorneys on each step of the foreclosure process. That's significant because otherwise attorneys will just, run with it, and then you won't have any control over the process.
That's right.
And that's not good, right? From a business
no.
standpoint, you're running a
You have
company.
no information, and then you're just spending money against stuff you have no idea.
You're just getting legal bills, and then you don't want to under litigate because then you're not moving the needle.
Right.
So you just want a controlled process, and where you're looking at each stage of the foreclosure process on a loan by loan basis,
optimizing each decision with that attorney to say, okay, this is the lowest cost way to get to an end, and not just saying, oh, well, I'm going to pay you a flat fee and you're going to file a foreclosure. Because by the time they do that and just file some paperwork, it's all jacked up, and you don't have control of the process.
Well, Sam, if you ever want to leave Charlie and come to Sarasota,
I want to come to Sarasota, but I'm not leaving Charlie.
I'm leaving Charlie and
Sandra.
I'm coming. So Martin,
down, Sandra.
I'm coming. I'll be there. I'm going to the other side of the state though. So how would one, I know you've just been talking about how mom and pops are being, kind of pushed out of the business. How does one get started in this NPL, RPL type of market? If I'm an investor and I want to start up a, business like you guys, where do you start?
Take some classes.
Take some classes.
Read Martin's books.
So yeah, I wrote books on it, and I train. I have a few workshops, and I take on a few proteges. I train less now because less people deserve to be in this space, and I'm not being conceited. If you come in this space, then you have to be ready to set up a business operation. Right. You have to be ready to put money down. You have to be ready to hire to keep yourself out of trouble, and to buy correctly. You need to be fully committed to sourcing. It's no longer a novice type, well, let me buy a few notes and see how it goes. You will get busted out hard. Either some state regulator will come down, you'll buy incorrectly, you won't find inventory because you're priced out at the retail level. Mm-hmm. Something will happen. So as a result, I train less. I raise my prices for training. And if someone is ready to put in the work, then I welcome them in and work with them. But getting formal training is so significant because there's 100 pitfalls in this industry, and I've fallen into many of them. So that's how I know.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
So formal training, all in. That's it. No half stepping. Right. No toe in the water. You just have to be all in. And then when people come in, they realize how hard it is. The work, the money's there. I mean, the returns are there, the financial rewards there, but you have to be able to not just handle hard work and setting up a business. You have to handle pressures, right? Because you have attorneys that sue you back. Like how are you sleeping okay getting sued?
How do you like seeing the sheriff drive up your driveway?
Yeah, I mean, you get served. I got served, early on I got served, and my wife was home.
Oh yeah.
And then with the newborn, and then she's like, oh, a sheriff's here. He needs to serve you. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then I'm thinking back, right? Have I been a bad boy? Have I done something? I do. And then I was like, well, I'm at this place in Woodbridge. I'm like at this location. Sheriff's like, I'll go meet you there. So then I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh man, this can't be good. And then he hands me a paper. He's like, that just says that the other lien holder is foreclosing, and he's adding you on the list, notifying you of the foreclosure.
That's okay. That's good. That's a good thing, right? That's quicker to your money.
Charlie has a strategy on service. Charlie has a service strategy. Every service notice comes to me. That's how the service notices work. And if I'm not available, my wife is freely served as well.
Yep.
So that's the strategy.
Nice.
I'm giving Sam's home address. Serve them.
I've got a particularly nosy neighbor, and and they'll give me a call now and again and tell me that the sheriff is here visiting outside the fence.
Miss Kravitz over there, huh?
Yeah, a little bit of that.
You just need to put a Dropbox out there, Sam, that says, "Please put service here," and we'll be accepted.
Yeah. So
Wait,
I have
are
a
there-
question for you, a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
So you're doing commercial as well as residential?
No,
Just
we're doing
residential?
strictly residential.
Okay.
Yeah, we have one of the pillars in our income fund is business notes. And however, that only makes up a minority portion of our portfolio. It's really an out if we ever kind of run dry on residential inventory, but we're residential focused.
I see. Because I was going to ask you to look in your commercial crystal ball, because I think there's some changes in there coming.
Yeah, I think what
Commercial.
America is going to be on sale.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly. Would you like a big box shopping center?
I'll tell you, the grass is always greener, right? And I've just been like reading books on private equity. I'm like, man, I could be a private equity guy. I could go swoop in and, buy a business for cheap, like do it Mitt Romney style. But I'm just like, I'm doing well with what I'm doing.
So what was the story we were listening to or hearing about when we first started about the squatters in Philly?
Yeah, tell us that story.
Oh, yeah.
Hear that
So
story.
colleague I have, he has a property in Temple University, and there's some gang members that broke into the condo when it wasn't rented and started living there and have been living there for 3 years since. and so the first thing that this individual did is call the police, and the police go, they meet with the individuals there, and basically the police said that these squatters have rights. So they've been there 3 years. He hasn't been able to get them out. They've told him that they're never going to move. They're going to live there forever.
Yeah.
And
They're telling the truth. they're squatters, not liars.
That's right.
So he brought, he had a muscle guy go over there and talk to them, and they pulled a gun on him. And so that guy's like, well, I didn't sign up for that.
Right. You can't have too many muscles for a gun. That's Superman chest.
Yeah.
So what happened?
That's it.
You're still there.
That's it?
They're staying forever.
Is that a thing? Is that really a thing? If I squat long enough, then
in some cities, it's nearly a thing.
I got another one. I mean, we had we have a $600,000 junior lien in a house in Seattle currently.
Nice house.
And it's a $2.5 million home. The senior's at about 1.7 to 1.8. And
1.8 on the senior.
Yeah, 1.8 on the senior. They owe 600. We took back the property about 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
And so we take back the property. There's tenants that live in the property, and so we're going down that road. So
now, are they tenants with an actual lease?
Yeah, they send us $6,000. So they send us $6,000. They want to live, but they send us a laundry list of repairs.
Okay.
Right? You see that?
But what are you doing on the?
Hey, we'll roll with them. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, but you're doing subject to on the first?
What's that? Yeah, subject to on the first. Yeah.
Subject
to
on
the
the
first was in forbearance at the time of foreclosure. So the first they haven't started foreclosure yet.
So subject to, but you're not sending any first payments.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is they want to stay till July, so we want to help them stay till July and be comfortable, but not too comfortable, not Ritz-Carlton, but like Holiday Inn. And so then have them leave, help them leave, right? Bring a moving truck, pay them a check, whatever.
Yeah.
And then sell the house and recoup as much as we can. You want to know what we pay for the note? $600.
I'd like to know. You pay $50,000?
I wish 100.
That's good.
No, wait. So I'm missing this. What I heard.
Hey, you want to sell for 150? You want to sell for 150?
The note?
Yeah, we'll buy it for 150.
No,
Well,
he doesn't have.
Sam, I have the property.
He has the property. There's no more note.
Wait, I
Even
don't know.
better, we'll
We'll take out your note subject. We'll take the note subject to
I
the
don't know
first.
how this works. I thought you said that there was a $2.4 million, property. There was a senior note on it of 1.6. And then
1.8,
you
let's say.
1.8, and then you had a $600,000 note. So I'm
Nope,
assuming that
nope.
you paid
He didn't say
600 for
that.
it.
He said the second trust was 600,000. He didn't say what he
He
was
paid
in it
100
for.
for his 600.
That's what I
Yeah.
was missing. I'm like, it doesn't seem like there's anything in that loan.
Can you double my money?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
The equity's there and the tenant's paying.
That's great. And so wait a minute. So your strategy is to take the 6,000 a month in rent. I'm assuming you're paying the property taxes.
Yeah, we just took back the property. So we just got the
okay.
check last week. So we're
Oh,
just
okay.
now
No,
kind of
that's great.
situating and figuring out to
That's awesome.
get everything. But
But
that's
he's
really
going to fix it up and sell it. In July, it'll be sold.
yeah, that's what we're looking to do. Sell. It's in the nicest part of Seattle.
Oh, that's great.
So it's across the street from goodness, like Lake Washington or something like
Oh,
that.
wow,
It's,
that's great.
That's
it's in a beautiful area.
So that senior investor is still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he's paying.
when you said
he's
we,
well, but are you paying the subject to, or are you letting it go?
So we haven't strategized. We just got the
Okay.
6K check last week. So
Okay.
we're now just kind of sitting down. So here's you want to go one step further on this.
Yes.
This is a wacky one.
This.
So the person we foreclosed on,
Yeah.
he lives on the East Coast and he has a government contracting company and he's been waiting on a multi-million-dollar payment. So he keeps hounding us that he wants to buy the property back and pay us off in full at the 600,000. He sent me documentation on it's like he did a whole like supply shipment of COVID related like gloves and this and that, like using a black cage code, which is what's used to sell to the government, but a black cage code. I never heard of a black cage code and I used to sell to the government. So he sent some documentation and he's just waiting to get paid.
What he needs is us to buy his receivable at a discount.
You know what? I'll throw that in as the icing. I'll throw that in as the icing. So we'll go.
You're the man. That is wonderful.
I'll connect you with him and everything.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're down with black cage code receivable.
What's that?
Wow, that's great.
We're down with a black cage code receivable.
Okay.
Well, usually the black government contracting system, that's all classified stuff. That's what that means. I interviewed at a black law firm where basically all they did is classified stuff. There were no windows. When I interviewed, I was like, this is not good for me. I like to talk too much too. But so yeah, he probably had the wherewithal to source gloves from like, you know, Vietnam communist insurgents or something. And but that sounds like it's right up Charlie's alley. He'll work with anybody.
Yeah, that's us. Send him our way. He's our guy.
Martin, this is James Bond like stuff.
This is you triple your money.
This is great.
Yeah. So like we text each other like weekly, me and the person that we foreclosed with. I mean, we have a good relationship, a good talk. He has an attorney, we have an attorney, but he bypasses his attorney, which is not good for him to do that, but he does it.
That's good stuff. I think we're going to probably
triple your money.
I think in 2 months or 3 months, we're going to have you back on. We've got to get the conclusion to this story.
Yeah, I like that. That'd be
yeah.
Great.
So we don't know, right? Like, the tenant wants to stay there because their children are in high school. So they want to stay there to all of next year as well as this year. But there's a verbal lease that goes to July. So we just want them to kind of move out.
Yeah, but 6,000 on a $1.6 million first trust, that's not going to be a very good cash flow.
No. Oh, 6,000. No, the cash flow sucks, Charlie. That's why we want to. The cash flow is good. We would keep them there all day long.
Right. But 6,000 rent on a $1.8 million first trust, I don't give a shit if the interest rate was 0. That's still a bad cash flow.
Yeah, but Charlie, you have to do cost of capital on 200K. You'll be fine.
Oh, no, I'm with you. No, I get it. No, I get it.
Of course, if they turn into squatters, you'll have to see what the Washington State it will look like.
So Edward, these people are executives. They're professionals at like major corporations. They're good. They got good credit. They're good. Right. honest paying
That's
individuals.
Wow, this is
So
great.
one thing though I had throughout that story, explain again what happened with the first trust. Are you now paying the first trust or is it in?
No, I didn't decide yet.
We're just in the beginning. Yeah, we just received the check from the tenant last week,
Yeah,
so
that's
we haven't had time to really figure
Time to
out.
think.
But that's our intention is to pacify the senior, get things kind of stabilized, and sell the property in July.
I
That's a
see.
great move.
Because one question I always have about second trusts is, and you must face this a lot, that there's fairly narrow amount of equity for you to collect on the second trust, and the first trust holder can, when the underlying person defaults on the first trust, and is the first trust holder paying attention to that? Are they, all the fees and attorney's fees and penalties can really start to add up. And since that's all underneath your second trust, it can eat up all the equity or a lot of the equity that you have. Is there any strategy to jump in to keep that from happening, to make sure that the first trust is not defaulted on when you don't know about it, or doesn't start it somehow to eat into the equity of your second trust?
So when we purchase these loans, we know that the senior's performing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
so we're the ones in the defaulted position. So it's first to foreclose. So if we start foreclosing before any other lien holder, then we'll be first to market. We'll be first to the auction house with it.
Right. So yeah, that's the key. That's one of his keys that he just gave you a tip. The first position is performing. So even the property in Seattle, when you bought the second, that first was performing, huh?
Yeah,
in
the first was in
forbearance.
well, the first was in performance when we purchased it.
It was performing
And
when you
then-
purchased it,
Oh, I
What's
see.
that?
right? It was performing when you purchased it.
Yes,
Right?
and then when
Okay.
COVID hit in March
Okay.
of last year, then they went into forbearance. Why? Because they could.
Yeah,
Right, of
right,
course.
right. We know that.
Yeah.
We know that works. That's
But
good.
at least the thing about forbearance like that, it's running up the interest, I guess. But it's not going to be so, it's not going to be that much money out of the principal. But how do you find out though? Can you find out if the first default? So you've got a performing first, you come in as the non-performing second, but maybe a week later or a month later or 3 months later, the first defaults. And what do you do if you don't know about that? Because again, same problem. They're going to eat up the equity.
Yeah, so when they foreclose, they'll notify all the other lien holders. So that's for one.
Yeah.
We have a payoff statement from the senior now, so we know where they're at, and so we keep in tune with all this. Now, oftentimes,
Well, I guess what I meant, so not to jump in, I meant if, well, in fact, to jump in, but I meant if the first is performing, sure, foreclosure, you'll get notice, but what if there's a default and the first isn't really paying attention
Yeah.
or isn't doing much to, move? Because for the same reason you probably get a lot of seconds, the first is some big bank. They, for whatever reason, either it's a high value property they don't want to mess with, or their margins for low, they just let it sit. But all that money is accruing, eating your second. Is there any way to find that out, that's happened, short of the foreclosure notice?
yeah, I mean, you can pull a credit, you can do an O&E, and you can pull the original note and mortgage from the senior and do your own calculations and kind of guesstimate. You can see if your attorney can get in contact with the foreclosure department and show that we're lien holders as well, and we want to get a payoff statement and order a payoff statement. So there's a number of tactics. I mean, that would be like a whole other segment in terms
Sure.
of like that strategy of monitoring.
Right.
Monitoring is its own major function of the business.
Thank you so much. It's been very, very informative.
Yeah, this has been great.
I'm going to send you details on this one here if you guys are.
Yeah, send
We'd
details.
love to
This is
see 'em.
great.
Oh,
This is great. Well,
that's funny. We got a bunch of these. I could probably go. We'll do another round, and then
Yeah, we'll do another
Basement
round.
Tales, I'll come up with some more current ones.
yeah,
Wacky.
these are good. These are really good stories. And we thank you very much for being on with us. I mean, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's kind of weird seeing you knowing that you're not here in Virginia or in Florida. So it's kind of weird, but it's kind of funny at the same time.
If you're watching
So-
out there, like us and subscribe. You'll
Yeah.
hear again.
And
from
if you
Martin.
guys have any stories you want to send us, our email is yourstory@basementtales.com. So send us in any of your stories. And again, we want to thank Martin for joining us today. And it's been a pleasure, Martin. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great operation. Keep rocking it, guys.
Appreciate it.
Martin, that sign behind you reminds me of the commercial that's on TV when you have to tell yourself things.
Oh,
You're becoming your parents. Do you really need to put a sign up that tells you need to